Hey guys, welcome back. This week we're looking at IC1284. This is both an emission and a reflection nebula right in the center of our Milky Way galaxy. My name's John Robinson, the Astrotard. This is Deep Sky. Hey guys, IC1284 is a combined emission nebula and reflection nebula. So it's a very interesting object to look at. The emission nebula is sort of a gaseous hydrogen region, red, and the reflection nebula is sort of two blue eyes that are reflecting the light around them, and they appear blue. So it's quite an interesting object. It's right in the middle between the Trifid Nebula and the Omega Nebula, and it's going to be an interesting one to shoot, and I really am excited to shoot it because I've been shooting galaxies all winter or spring, I guess, and now as we're heading into the summer, it's time to get back into the nebulas. I'm going to use a combination of RGB filters and lume. I'm going to use a hydrogen alpha as my lume channel, and so the reason I want to do that is I want to get the true color of the stars using the RGB and the true color of the nebula with RGB, but I really want the nebulosity from the hydrogen alpha. So I'm going to do a neat trick where I combine the RGB stars with the hydrogen alpha to produce a lume channel, which is really effective, I think. So I've got the telescope inside, and I've had this unit out here for several nights, so I've been enjoying this good weather here in North Dallas. So let's get right into it and get inside to PixInsight. Okay guys, so the Astrodon 3 nanometer hydrogen alpha filter was used as a lume, and the Astrodon E series RGB filters were used to capture red, green, and blue data. So let me kind of show you what I've got here. So here's I have a total of 90 subs, and they're 5-minute each, for about 2,700 seconds or 7.5 hours of data. For the red, I've got 23, blue is 21, green is 21, and H alpha, which is my lume channel, is 25. Now the Astrodon H alpha is a 3 nanometer filter, only allowing that 3 nanometer wavelength in the red region for H alpha. The red filter covers about 80 nanometers. And the blue is about 120 and the green is 90. Here in this picture you can see what I'm talking about. This is where these filter ranges are. So let's get into PixInsight, 7.5 hour exposure. So I used the normal script batch preprocessing, weighted batch preprocessing to mix this guy. This is how I did the calibration, the registration, and the integration. And that was a weighted process, so it figured out which had the best weighting based on full width half radius measurements, I believe, FWHM, to decide which is the master. Anyway, so here's what I came up with. This is the red. Here's the green. Maybe make them all the same size, that would be helpful. Here's the red, here's the green, and here's the blue. So it's pretty strong data, even though it is RGB data. I shot this without any moon influence at all, although it is low in the horizon this time of year. Here you can see where this IC1284 is located. The interesting thing about it is it comes up at around, I don't know, 2 a.m. and it sets at around 4 a.m. So I get a good 2 or 3 hours into it before I have to give up on it. Yeah, so those are the red. The red is really strong. This is primarily a red image, but it does have a blue component as well. So the red area here and then the blue area called the blue eyes. So I would expect that the blue channel would be heavy in blue there. So when I mix this together using pixel math, and I just ran a quick, typed in an RGB here, RGB. This is what the color ends up looking like. So this is what you might expect, 4 hours of integration would look like here in Dallas using a color camera. This is all 3 filters combined. It is primarily red, as we expect. Most of the data in space is red. But we do have some of that blue stuff there. Now this is before any stretching or anything like that. And it has some noise in there that I need to take care of. So anyway, so that was the RGB. But I also shot H alpha. So the H alpha, and again I'm using this as the lume channel, was pretty strong. Since it's a very narrow band of 3 nanometers, it's just looking for the hydrogen and nothing else. And you can really see, especially if you compare the hydrogen to the red has a lot more stars in it, but the H alpha has a lot more nebulosity. And so we're going to combine and get the best of both worlds, the nebulosity from the hydrogen alpha and the stars from the RGB. I'll show you how I did that. Anyway, so the nebulosity here is really crisp and clear on these 25 subs. But the stars for H alpha are a problem. You can see the stars for red and green and blue are a lot more plentiful, meaning they're larger. So here's what I did. I stripped the stars out of H alpha and just created the H neb. And I did that using the star remover tool, StarNet. And so I've just got the H neb here. So with the H neb, I also stripped out the stars from the RGB. So keep that in mind. There's the H neb. Here's the black and white version of the RGB, and I stripped the stars out of there. And here's what the stars looked like here. So I took these stars from the RGB and I combined them with the nebulosity of the H alpha using pixel math. Simple enough. Yeah, just do the black and white. So we just said H neb plus stars, and the stars are from the RGB. So this is the combination of H alpha nebula and red, green, and blue stars. So let's compare this to the original H. So here's the H alpha undaunted, untouched, and then here's the H alpha after removing the stars from it and adding the RGB stars back in. So you can see where I'm going with this. I'm creating a lume channel which has the same size of the stars as my RGB. And let's look at that. Let's look at the RGB. So again, here's the RGB, here's the original H alpha, and then here's the H alpha using the RGB stars, which are larger. So this is going to be a better lume channel for my RGB. So once I had that lume channel, I called that H2. Again, the H2 is combining the RGB stars and the H alpha nebula. Now my H2 is my lume, and I used a script in here called multi-channel synthesis LRVB, and I just assigned the H2 as the lume and the RGB as the RGB. And when I do that, it ends up looking like this. Now this, is taking the best of both. It's got the color in there, but it's also got the nebulosity from the hydrogen alpha. Let's look at that hydrogen alpha lume channel. And let's also bring up the RGB so we can see all three. So taking the RGB and the lume channel, which is the H alpha modified, together, this is what I end up with. So I get the best of both worlds. I get to keep all my star coloring. You can see I do have some good coloration in the stars there. I also get to keep the nebulosity that the H alpha captured. Now the next step was to go ahead and push and pull on these colors. And so after that, here's the final image. Voila. So this now has the best of everything in it. Again, here's the RGB I started with. Here's the modified lume, which is the H alpha and the stars from the RGB. And then here is the result after pushing and pulling on those colors. And that's it. That's IC1284. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments if you have any feedback or any specific questions. And thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.